Back to the basics.
It really is. Oh, the uppercut, and he took it. Jake Paul took it.
Down to the body with the right hand for Anthony Joshua. There's a big left mount.
Yeah.
I think he went into that fight knowing that was probably going to happen.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the big win for him would be that he was even willing to do it and that he could do well for a little bit.
Yeah.
The problem is he was like a famous kid, and then no one took him seriously.
Yeah.
But
and then he started too with like more spectacle-ish fights.
Joe Rogan has finally spoken out, pulling back the curtain on Jake Paul and Logan Paul in a way that many fans have quietly suspected for years, but never dared to say aloud. What he's highlighting goes far beyond the usual fight commentary or hype. It's a full-on examination of how the essence of boxing, the very principles that have defined the sport for generations, may be under threat. We're not just talking about flashy promotional tactics or clever marketing stunts here. We're talking about the possibility that fights are being scripted, meticulously orchestrated, and manipulated in ways that systematically erode the authenticity of the competition. The line between genuine, high-stakes athletic confrontation and manufactured spectacle is becoming so blurred that it's almost impossible to distinguish reality from performance. Boxing was built on risk, uncertainty, and the raw consequences of human skill colliding under pressure. Careers could end, reputations could be shattered, and lives could change in an instant. Now, as more and more carefully controlled narratives and orchestrated outcomes enter the ring, fans are being forced to confront uncomfortable questions about control, fairness, and credibility, questions that strike at the very foundation of the sport. If you've ever watched a fight recently and found yourself thinking, I kind of know how this is going to go, it's not just your imagination or a fleeting sense of cynicism. It's a reflection of a deeper reality. The core of boxing, the unpredictability and real stakes that made it matter in the first place, is being quietly tested, challenged, and pushed to its absolute limits right in front of our eyes. The energy, the tension, the sense that anything could happen, the very heartbeat of what makes boxing thrilling, is now under scrutiny, and the implications extend far beyond one fight, one fighter, or one viral moment.
I'm sorry to have to ask you this, but blink twice if that Jake Paul fight was set up.
Blink twice.
I know you probably
I
can't
don't
say
never
that.
blink because I got these liberty eyes. A lot of people wonder that, but think about this. If I say, Rampage, I'm going to pay you $2 million, right? Let this dude beat you, what you going to do?
Boxing has always thrived on uncertainty. That's literally the DNA of the sport. Every punch thrown, every step taken in the ring is a collision of preparation, skill, instinct, and raw human emotion. The entire foundation of boxing is built on the understanding that once that bell rings, nothing can be completely controlled. No amount of planning, strategizing, or game planning can dictate exactly what will happen next. In an instant, momentum can shift, instincts can clash with fear, and physical damage can accumulate in real time. It's in that unpredictable chaos that boxing finds its essence, its drama, and its authenticity, qualities that pure entertainment or scripted spectacle can never replicate. Fans don't just watch fights for the punches or combinations. They tune in for the risk, the uncertainty, and the knowledge that anything could happen. There is an unspoken contract between the fighters and the audience. A sacred agreement that what unfolds in the ring is real, raw, and uncontrolled. And when that trust is questioned, when fans begin to doubt the genuineness of what they're seeing, the entire structure of the sport begins to tremble at its core. In recent years, crossover boxing has pushed this sacred contract to its absolute limits. The rise of influencer fights has brought massive attention, enormous financial stakes, and audiences that traditional boxing could never reach. But it has also introduced something boxing has historically resisted: narrative management. Fights started to feel less like true tests of skill and more like episodes in a pre-planned series. Carefully chosen opponents, selective matchmaking, promotional arcs that felt scripted rather than earned, and subtle manipulation of outcomes all began to shape the conversation, whether openly acknowledged or not. What was once relegated to late-night message board speculation and Reddit conspiracy threads slowly leaked into mainstream sports discussion, on major networks and popular podcasts alike. This shift from fringe theory to legitimate concern represents far more than a single fight result. It threatens the very principles that make boxing meaningful, turning unpredictability, courage, and risk into commodities that can be managed, packaged, and sold.
In the Jake fights, for me to do that, I gotta be willing to walk away for good, and it gotta set me up for a while, at least not for life.
I didn't enough money.
He has had no real professional opponents other than Tommy Fury that were legitimate world-class boxers.
Joe Rogan's commentary didn't land like your typical post-fight criticism, and that's precisely why it resonated so powerfully and grabbed so much attention. This wasn't about dissecting technique, pointing out flawed footwork, or analyzing tactical decisions. None of the usual breakdowns that dominate fight coverage. Instead, Rogan spoke to something far deeper: the psychology of combat and the underlying culture of boxing itself, the aspects that exist beneath the surface, often invisible to casual viewers. When experienced fighters, those who have stepped into the ring and truly felt the impact of sanctioned violence, speak calmly about moments that feel off or out of place, people listen differently than when a random commentator offers opinionated complaints. There is a weight and authority in words that come from someone who intimately understands the consequences of real combat. Not in the sense of disliking flashy YouTube thumbnails, but in recognizing the genuine risks that can alter a fighter's career, their health, and even the trajectory of their life. Rogan's tone wasn't one of outrage, wild accusation, or click-driven drama. It was measured, deliberate, and concerned. And it is precisely that measured concern, grounded in knowledge and experience, that exposes uncomfortable truths far more effectively than shouting or sensationalism ever could. The heart of the matter isn't whether influencer fighters train hard or demonstrate courage, because most of them undoubtedly do put in real work, but whether the culture, the integrity, and the unpredictability that make boxing meaningful are being preserved. Rogan's words cut straight to that uncomfortable reality, highlighting the tension between performance and authenticity in a sport built on risk and genuine competition.
Yeah.
The problem is he was like a famous kid, and then no one took him seriously.
Joe Rogan's commentary didn't land like typical fight criticism, and that's exactly why it cut so deep and got so much attention. This wasn't about technique breakdowns or tactical analysis or judging whether someone's footwork was sloppy. It struck directly at the psychology of combat and the entire culture surrounding it, the stuff that lives underneath the surface. When experienced fighters who've been in that ring, who know what real violence feels like, speak calmly about things that feel off, people listen in a completely different way than when some random commentator complains. There is a weight to words that come from someone who understands sanctioned violence not as content for YouTube thumbnails, but as genuine consequence that can alter the course of someone's life. The tone wasn't outrage or wild accusation or trying to start drama for clicks. It was concerned, and concern, especially when it's measured and restrained like that, tends to expose uncomfortable truths more effectively than shouting or anger ever could. The core issue here isn't whether influencer fighters train hard or show physical courage, because let's be honest, most of them do put in real work.
You just will never be a good fighter, so I wish that I could have knocked him out at the start, but as we saw,
Me like sparring
Yeah.
when I watched it, which, you know, look, I paid for it. They got me. I thought it was going to be a real fight.
Effort has never been the ultimate measure of legitimacy in boxing, and anyone who truly understands the sport knows this fundamental truth. What really matters is the risk you face when stepping into the ring against someone capable of taking something crucial from you, the very essence of the fight itself. That risk encompasses everything: your undefeated record, your physical health, your long-term brain function, your future earning potential, and even your sense of control over what unfolds when fists are flying. Boxing has always demanded that stakes come first, that competition, not comfort, be the ultimate arbiter. Yet in recent years, we've seen a shift. Fights framed primarily as business ventures, where revenue, brand building, and spectacle take precedence over genuine competition. Audiences feel it instinctively, even if they can't articulate exactly what's wrong. The unease doesn't stem from envy or malice. It comes from pattern recognition, from watching the same calculated playbook repeated over and over until doubt creeps in. What unsettled many observers most was the insinuation that outcomes, pacing, or even the physical limits of fighters could be discussed and manipulated behind closed doors before the bell ever rang. The Jake Paul fight, for example, didn't feel one, it felt delivered. 6 rounds ticked by like a corporate deadline, 33 million live eyes watching as if quotas had to be met, every detail, even breath control behind the scenes, seemingly choreographed like ignition points in a carefully timed operation. Boxing has always carried narratives of corruption, like barnacles on a ship, but historically these were tied to judges' scorecards being bought, promoters cutting secret deals, or sanctioning bodies operating in the shadows to manipulate rankings. What sets the current era apart, and what makes it potentially far more dangerous, is the brazenness and openness of influence. Social media power now functions as leverage in negotiations, and when that leverage begins actively shaping what happens inside the ring, the danger is no longer limited to unfairness or a single fighter being disadvantaged. The true threat is normalization, the slow, steady process by which something outrageous becomes accepted as routine. Once this happens, people stop questioning it, even as the very principles that have defined boxing for generations are quietly eroded. Even Anthony Joshua's muted or measured response became part of the narrative, woven into the story without him needing to say a word, showing just how much the sport itself has changed under these new pressures.
The Paul fight didn't feel won, it felt delivered. 6 rounds like a deadline, 33 million live eyes like a quota, breathwork behind doors timed like ignition.
Over time, this erosion happened slowly and almost imperceptibly, replaced by quiet acceptance and resignation until the very principles boxing once stood for fade from memory. The danger isn't just a single scripted fight, a suspicious outcome, or one questionable performance. It's far deeper than that. The real existential threat lies in the very idea that scripting could even be entertained, that it could enter the conversation as a legitimate possibility rather than an absolute betrayal of everything the sport represents. This is why Joe Rogan's perspective struck such a chord with so many people. He framed the issue not as entertainment criticism or a complaint about flashy production values, but as a matter of psychological warfare, the mental game that is at the heart of combat sports. Fighters are trained from day one to break their opponents mentally as much as physically, to get inside their heads, sow doubt, and force hesitation. Introducing ambiguity, whether about rules, expectations, or intentions behind the scenes, attacks that entire psychological process. When a fighter enters the ring believing the contest is pure, knowing that the stakes are real, they commit fully, mentally, and physically. But when doubt creeps in, when that small voice whispers, "Wait, is this even real?" hesitation follows almost instantly, and in boxing, hesitation can cost everything. It's in that split second that fights are won or lost, and when the integrity of the sport is questioned, that split second can carry consequences far beyond the ring itself.